throughout the season, much has been made about the Raptors being seemingly unable to beat teams ahead of them in the standings and beat teams that are near the top of their respective conferences. But in the fog of that, this is, after all, a team that is 34-23. This is a team threatening for a home seed for the NBA playoffs. So in the fog of those losses against some of the upper teams, I think we've missed where there has been a lot of success for the Raptors this season and their dominance in a certain aspect of the game. And I spoke about this in a recent watch along, but I do want to dive into this a little bit further for the stream because it does go under the radar here. You look at the NBA standings, you see the top of, let's go to the top of each of the conferences in the NBA. So the Raptors right now are the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. 34-23, like great record. Coming into the season, I remember seeing last year, we wanted to be a top 6 seed. And what do we got to do that? Well, last year the Pistons won 44 games. That's what it took to be a top 6 seed. Raptors currently on pace to win upper 40s in games this season. Upper 40s. Looks like they're on pace to do just that and be a top 6 seed and maybe top 5, maybe even a top 4 seed. Like they're winning a ton of games. But then you look at the top of the standings here. The Pistons have beat them in the game they played. They are 0-3 against the Celtics. They are 0-3 against the Knicks. You have to play them 2 more times. They are 3-0 against the Cavs, though. Granted, they played the Cavs early in the season when the Cavs were really struggling. The Cavs have been on fire lately. On fire. So maybe things go different when we play them now. But anyways, the stat is we are 3-0 against the Cavs this season. You go to the Western Conference. 1-0 against the Thunder. And don't forget it. We're playing them again, but don't forget it. 1-0 against the Thunder right now. 0-1 against Spurs. 0-1 against the Nuggets in a game the Nuggets were missing like everybody. 0-1, maybe the Rockets. 0-1 at least against the Rockets. 0-2 against the Lakers, I'm pretty sure. 0-1 against the Timberwolves as well. Like for the teams in the top of the West, like they're struggling against some of these upper teams. You see, like where are all of these wins? The Raptors are 34-23. Where are these wins coming from? Well, I'll tell you. What has been kind of overlooked here is just how good, how dominant the Raptors showing no mercy to teams below them in the standings. They are so good at beating inferior teams. And you think, well, they're better than them. Of course, they should be winning more than that. It's not that they're winning more than that. They are absolutely dominating these sorts of games this season. I feel like in recent years, we've become very numb to the Raptors losing games that they shouldn't. It's like how could you lose to that team? How could you possibly lose to that team? And I feel like the joke has maybe spilled it a bit to this year. Like, oh, Raptors are going to find a way to lose this game. But it has been like the complete opposite. The Raptors are continuously just finding ways to win all of the time. They keep on beating teams they're supposed to beat. And I think listen, I would much rather just be really good against the good teams, right? But like, this is what we've done this season. I think an important aspect of being a super competitive team in any sport is your ability to not slip up in the games you're not supposed to. And if we go through like the entire schedule, we can see just how much the Raptors have had success against those teams. They've had a very limited amount of variance in these games from a win-loss perspective is what I'm trying to get at. They have just continued to win the games that they just need to get. They need to get these games. And that is what has to continue to carry them in the standings this season. So, you know, we could start with like this area here where, okay, start of the season, Raptors were 1-4. And they had a bad loss to Milwaukee and a really bad loss to Dallas. San Antonio are really good, so we can kind of excuse that. Same with the Rockets, but like it was a very underwhelming start to the season. From that point on, let's look through every loss here. They lost to Philadelphia, who are 6th in the East. Don't think that's like a horrific loss, and we've beaten Philly twice this season. We lost to Charlotte OT. That was a pretty rough loss. Granted, Charlotte are also storming up the NBA standings, but that was a rough loss. Let's not spin it in a direction for that early in the season. Lost to New York. Knicks are really good. Lost to the Lakers, playoff team in the West. Lost to Charlotte again. That was a bad loss. I get Charlotte going the same, but the Raptors were awful in that game. Lost to the Celtics. Already talked with them. Same with the Knicks again. Then Boston. Now here's the bad pocket. This was the bad pocket of the season. This right here, these four. This was the bad pocket because you lost to Boston, and we can even extend it maybe down to Denver. You lost to Boston, rough one, didn't play well. Embarrassing loss to Brooklyn, embarrassing loss to Washington. These are the only two real outlier losses. Those are the only two real, wow, like, how did you lose to that team? And they got blown out in both those games. Those were awful, awful Raptors games. But we just haven't had a lot. We haven't had a lot of these just truly horrendous outlier games. That's why they're such strong outliers. Brooklyn and Washington, bad ones. And again, maybe even Denver because on New Year's Eve they had like nobody playing. But then since the start of the calendar year, I don't think we've lost to any team that's like outrageously bad to lose to. We lost to Philadelphia again, playoff team. Boston again, one of the top seeds in the East. We lost to the Clippers, who at the time they were a wagon before they traded all these guys. They were a wagon, like they were one of the best teams in the NBA at the time. Lost to the Lakers, a playoff team. New York, a playoff team. Orlando, okay. Good team away from home. Like, that was probably a winnable game. We probably should have won, especially the position we were in. And I get, like, we were up by, like, double digits in this game. It's the Knicks, and same with the one with the Timberwolves. We kind of fumbled those games, but it's a playoff team. Minnesota's a playoff team. Orlando, a play-in team, but, like, not an egregious loss necessarily on paper. And then Detroit, the one seed of the East. I'm not trying to, like, cope. I'm not trying to, like, justify these, like, losses or anything. But I think, despite the fact that, look, when you get to the playoffs, you're not playing these teams. When you get to the playoffs, you're playing those playoff teams. You're gonna need to figure out how to beat those teams. But for a team that is this short of amount of time into their rebuild, the fact that they have been so dominant in these games against lesser teams, I find that to be quite impressive. And I think that sometimes a good team is showcased by its ability to win the ones it needs to win and is supposed to win. And that's what the Raptors have done this season. I think for a lot of the reason why is their defense is very good, so even if their offense is faltering, they don't really need it to be elite. They just need it to be enough, and they tend to get enough out of the firepower they have with the likes of Brandon Ingram, Scottie Barnes, sometimes RJ Barrett coming through. In the clutch, sometimes it's been Immanuel Quickley coming through for the team this season. I think that's been... I think it's just been a little overlooked and something that we haven't looked into enough where they've had the success in these areas this season. But like I said, when it comes to the playoffs, you've got to be playoff teams. And we got to get through the rest of the season. There's going to be playoff teams along the way. The fact that we beat a team like Chicago, maybe not super convincingly, but beat a team like the Bucks convincingly. The fact that we did that now gives us more leash. Like Oklahoma City and San Antonio coming up back-to-back. Those are two really tough games. It's back-to-back nights as well. It's a nightmare. Second night of a back-to-back against San Antonio after getting OKC the day before. That's the top two teams in the West. It would be understandable. I want to win both, but if you lost both, would that be you could understand how that happened? The fact that we've beaten these teams gives us more of a leash where it's okay, not an emergency if we lose these games. But then you got to get it back against Washington if so. We've just built up so many of these wins. It's just given us the chances to lose these games. So when we progress going forward, if we can refine this a bit more, like we're not blowing some of these games late, and we're starting to beat some of these playoff teams, and we mix that in with this defense that is making sure we're just not losing to these inferior teams, I think these are great stepping stones for the Raptors to take on for the near future and in the seasons to come. So as much as there are negatives with what I'm portraying here, I think there's plenty to take positive-wise about where the Raptors record is coming from this season.